Hello and welcome to another great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. And as always, I have a special show, a special topic, and a special guest. This is a really, really big one. 25 years of anything is huge. 25 years of a platform, a product, a media property associated with the Super Bowl is even bigger. And to be talking with the only Black woman who has an officially sanctioned event for 25 years associated with probably the biggest global event in sports, if not in entertainment in general, is even bigger than that. So, I always bring you the goods. And I have here our guest today, the CEO of Results Marketing and Media, the creator of the Super Bowl Soulful Celebration, a gospel celebration as it is, associated with the Super Bowl now for 25 years. Can't believe it, 25 years.
You aged me. I was going to tell you I'm still 25, but I see you won't let me do that.
She was in preschool when she got this idea.
That's right.
Listen, without further ado, welcome to the show, Melanie Few. Melanie, oh my God, it's so great to see you.
Thank you for having me. We go back, sir.
We go back
and
to
I'm just grateful to be here. I've always been a fan of Black Enterprise. And I'm just so proud to see the way the brand has just stood the test of time. It's a blessing.
Melanie, you've been bigger than a fan. I always tell people there's no difference between your fans and your friends. You've been a champion of Black Enterprise.
Oh, thank you.
Back in the day, we were all trying to figure out how we were going to do what we were going to do. And, again, we knew each other before you came up with this idea. And I remember how hard, we know it's been 25 years since it's existed, but it was many years before that for you to get it established. So I know. We go back, so I know and appreciate what it took to even get this thing launched, much less talk about keeping it going for 25 years. But you're doing something really special this year. So first, talk about what the Super Bowl Soulful Celebration is and has been for 25 years, and then what you're doing this year to really celebrate this milestone.
Yeah. So thank you so much. The Super Bowl, we were Super Bowl Gospel before we were Super Bowl Soulful for many, many years. We just recently went through a rebrand so that we could open up the platform to all types of people, and really make it about, gospel is soulful, and it taps and touches the soul. So we wanted to have the opportunity to do that. But we have had an opportunity to go back and look at our 24-year history, and it's been such a blessing because we really understand how we have been blessed to do some things that had never been done before. We were the first inspirational show to have ever been broadcast on ESPN. We went many, many years after that, and we were on BET. We've had a licensed, property airing on Amazon Prime. And it's just, like I said, it's been a best. And right now we're actually running a syndicated special, which is the best of Super Bowl Gospel. So we are looking back over our 24 years. And we did that with Nate Burleson as the host, who, as you know, is a former NFL player, but also the host of CBS Mornings, co-host with Gayle King. And he's just phenomenal. And he grew up, he says, every morning on Saturdays, they had to get up and clean and listen to Mississippi Mass. So he has an affinity to gospel music, and he just really has been the perfect host to tell our story over these 24 years.
Well, I'm excited about when I learned that Nate was going to be hosting this special, because I grew up in a faith and football household. It was church and the NFL. So, I'm old enough to have remembered the first Super Bowls. In fact, the first two weren't even called Super Bowls yet. It wasn't until Super Bowl III before it got the name Super Bowl. But of course, I watched Nate play. But more impressive than, his success as a player was its great transition into being a really top-notch television host and analyst.
Yes.
I got into him when he was one of the hosts of Good Morning Football on the NFL Network. And I grew up in a football household, so we have a deep appreciation for people who actually know what they're talking about and can explain it to everybody else in a way that makes sense. And of course, he certainly, transitioned as one of the hosts at CBS Mornings, and he's just doing some amazing things. So it just makes me admire him even more. So when first of all, when I first found out about the special, which is going to be amazing, then Nate's the host, and I was like, wow, this is great. So I'm almost excited, not as excited, but almost as excited as you are about what
I
you're
am
about.
so excited because on top of everything else, him, having all these accomplishments, he's really authentically true to who he is. Who would have ever thought we would have the blessing of seeing a black man wearing rocking braids on a morning show in America? And I love it. I
Well, he
totally
always
love it.
brought the style. I mean, that's the thing. You like to say he's authentic. He represents well. We have this thing, black and probably say black men excel, black girls rock,
Mhm.
black men excel, and Nate lives that out. And again, so I already
Exactly.
knew that if you were proud to have him host the show, again, I've only met him very very briefly, so I don't know the
Mhm.
way I know you. But I was like, if he got the stamp of approval from Melanie to be associated with this, then there's even more about him to admire than I even know about. So very
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
listen,
I'm so excited for so many reasons. While we have looked back over these 24 years, really been a very emotional, beautiful experience because one of the things that I love about the show, we have honored folks. We've had everybody from Tom Brady on to Russell Wilson to Dion. And every year we have, not every year, because we started 6 years ago, created a Faith in Action Award, and
mhm,
we honor players who are doing the work in their local communities. Like Russell was one of our honorees. Last year, Jalen Hurts was an honoree because they are doing the work. They're going to children's hospitals. They're going in the community and providing food and for underprivileged kids and other, and just really doing great community outreach. We've also done selectively only a few times the Lifetime of Inspiration Award, and we've done that when it means something, when it's relevant. So we gave it to Troy Vincent when he became the EVP at the NFL. We gave it to Deion Sanders when he, became a coach at a HBCU. And so just to see these beautiful stories unfold, and then you couple that with this amazing, inspiring music. When you tell a Russell Wilson story and you come behind that with a Yolanda Adams song or a Fantasia or whomever. It just really, really is a beautiful journey.
I really appreciate everything you just said. Again, as a lifelong NFL, consumer fan, because that's the household I grew up in, but also as a person of faith. I host another show on another podcast network called Be Lifted Up Radio, and it's about faith and finance.
Hmm.
And it's one thing to see players kneeling, during the game, or maybe somebody gets injured, and you see the players will sit down and pray, or so we know that faith is a part of football. We know that people
Hmm.
of faith are involved in all sports and in all every arena of endeavor. But it's another thing to know that away from the game, when you look at you mentioned Russell Wilson or Jalen Hurts, and they talk about their faith, and it's not just about the football. It's who they are and how they live and what they believe. And so to have the platform you've created be a forum to recognize that of who these men are, who these people are, away from the athletic performance, it's meaningful because it gets to see these people in a more human light. And the other thing that I appreciate about what you shared is that some these awards aren't just awards you just give out just to be giving them out.
Right,
That
because
there
we're
are
not an award show.
yeah, it becomes a matter of tradition and ritual. It defeats the purpose of faith. There has to be a
Hmm.
certain degree of you're moved by the spirit to say, no, don't do it just because you do it every year. You need to do it. Do it because it's time to do it. And this person, I mean, I want to put words in your mouth, but I appreciate this idea that when it's called for, you talk
Hmm.
about a
Hmm.
calling. You're living in your calling even by doing this over the last 25 years. Um, that's when you do it,
And
not
I'm gonna
just
tell
to
you, on top of when you talk about a calling,
Mhm.
I don't know if you know this, but we also created an NFL Players Choir,
I did not
and
know that at all.
they are 16 years old now. And it's
Oh,
interesting
wow.
because how the choir came about. One year we were in, I want to say it was Jacksonville. We didn't even know we had players that were coming every year, whatever, that could sing. And Patty LaBelle looked around the room and she said, "Oh my God, there's so many good looking men in this room." She said, "But none of them can sing." And guys start jumping up and running and grabbing her mic and started blowing. And it was amazing because I didn't know we had guys that could sing. So much to the point to last year, excuse me, we're in 2023, the end of last year, the guys, they reached out to us from America's Got Talent and asked us, could the guys come on? They thought it was going to be a novelty. And they thought, okay, this will be a joke, something for Simon to laugh about. The guys get to the audition, sing their faces off. I mean, to the point, Simon was like just holding his head. He couldn't believe it. He was like, what is going on here? And, the guys went on to make the semifinals of America's Got Talent. It's so much untapped talent that people don't get to see behind the helmets. Till we're super excited about them too, because they're celebrating their 16th year on our 25th anniversary. And
Wow.
so that also has just been a wonderful part of this journey.
So that's a thing, and the show's called Beyond the Hype for a reason. We try to get beyond the surface of what is promoted, marketed, promoted on social media, shared, to be what's the real meaning behind it. And what you just shared with me, because I didn't know about this NFL choir. And again, I'm an NFL person. Anything we can do, we as human beings, but we, let's say the NFL can do, to humanize a sport that can too often gets boiled down to just people performing on the field, especially in a sport that's where the players are 70% African American men. Anything that shows that these men are men of faith, they're men of talent, there are men who are invested in community, there are men who, they're human beings, of course, we're all flawed, but there are men who do to make contributions to society. They're great entrepreneurs. They're talented in so many ways, and it becomes very easy, or at least has been over the years, to kind of just think of them. Oh, they just kind of perform on the field. They're really good at running and jumping, but what else can they do? And so I want you to kind of give the Beyond the Hype audience some deeper insights into what it means to really be able, over this 25-year journey, for you to have discovered, the culture of the NFL and the talent and the multidimensionality of players and others in the league.
One of the things I want to say, because I know a lot of you all's followers are entrepreneurs. One of the things I want to go back and give a little bit of history. I went to the Super Bowl back like 89, 90. Like I was right out of college. And I couldn't understand why there was no inspirational event surrounding Super Bowl. So I think it's important to let people know that when you have a mantle placed on you, you can't put it down. You can't. If it's a God calling for your life, you cannot put it down. And I wrote the NFL. Most people may not know this, but I wrote the NFL for 7 years before I got sanctioned to do this event. I was always that little girl when my parents would tell me no. I usually had to get a spanking because I never understood that no really did mean no. So, and to Gene Upshaw, I'm sure you remember Gene Upshaw. Gene Upshaw was still alive at the time. And he had told a friend of mine who worked there, he didn't know we were friends. He was like, this lady is crazy. She has been writing for several years. Because I was writing NFL and NFLPA. I was writing anybody that would listen. He said, I know how we can get rid of her. We're going to tell her if she can get Gladys Knight, that we'll, get the NFL to sanction her. And so I didn't even know what the word sanction meant. I knew what it meant, but not in terms of, with this strategic alignment partnership. So when they said, we're going to sanction you if you can get Gladys Knight. Now, I didn't know what it meant. I was like, oh, maybe it means we're going to meet up at the bank somewhere. I didn't, I know now. I know now it meant, you get to use the intellectual property of the league, which is very, very meaningful, exclusive, important. And so they thought, okay, well, we'll get rid of her. But I actually am from Atlanta. And as you know, Gladys Knight is from Atlanta. My aunt went to Turner High School with Gladys, and I tracked her down. And so when I called them, I said, I got Gladys. So what's next? And my dear, dear friend, Marilyn Batchelor, she was working with Gladys. So I tracked her down. And they were like, this girl they couldn't believe it. So we did it for the first time on the beach in Miami in 1999. And here we are. It's going on 2024, which will be our 25th anniversary.
Yeah, guys in my audience, I want you to know because about 50% of my guests on this show are people who I actually know and that we've known their journey. So,
Mhm.
so beyond the hype crew, you got to understand this sister. Everything she's telling you, this is the sister I've known all these years. I mean, she used to talk to me and Derek Dingle about what she was going to do, and if you know Melanie, once she says she's going to do something, you probably should just write it down and just keep it moving. Because you're right. You're sweet. You're gracious. You're not. You're not. You're not. People think that kind of the go-getter type is the person that's like, they're kicking and cursing and
Yeah.
no. But you're the sweetest person I know.
I don't know.
Well, you're one of the sweetest persons I know.
Thank
But the
you.
way your graciousness about how you handle business is I've known you for a long time. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't get things done. And
Yeah.
I didn't until I was pitched about having you on the show. I was like, wow, has it really been 25 years? I remember when we used to talk
25
about
years.
what you were going to do and how you were going to do it. So let's go back a little bit since we're talking about this 25-year journey. Like I said, you were just out of college, you were fresh, and I talk a lot about how you get certain things done through two things: faith and
Mhm.
not knowing what you don't know. Like if you knew what you couldn't do, you'd be like, I can't do it. But because
Exactly.
you didn't know that you couldn't do it, you assumed that you can, and
Mhm.
that kind of reverse, I don't even want to call it ignorance, but reverse lack of knowledge works in your favor when you're operating in faith. Because you're like,
Mhm.
so talk to me about where you were as a younger woman who had this
Mhm.
vision,
Mhm.
didn't know how it was going to happen, but you
Mhm.
knew you were going to make it happen.
Well, like I said, I 7 years got rejection letters, and because I
Mm,
started writing them like 19 I went to Super Bowl in like 89, 90, and I started writing them like 91, I wanna say, because I had 7 years and I started in 1999.
I
It's
want to say
interesting.
the number seven, it has biblical meaning. Number
It has
one,
biblical the number
so
8 is new beginnings.
number eight's new beginning, and it's a
Mhm.
whole word. I could almost shut the show down right now, but you say 7 years of rejection.
7 years of rejection. And it's interesting because I've always my parents are deceased now, but I've always been extremely close to my parents. And I come from a world, where my mother was a school teacher, my father was president of teachers credit union, and they would say, man, just go get your teacher certificate and sit down. And I said, I totally respect the profession of teaching
Mhm.
because it's so underserved, if you ask me, where people don't really respect. None of us would be who we are if it were not for teachers. But I knew I had substitute taught, and I knew it was not for me. And so I kept telling my parents, no, it's not for me. I want to do something else. And they didn't come from that world. They didn't understand. And they kept saying, this is you being weird, daughter. So, you just need to get a job and go sit down, retire in 40 years. And I said that, sometimes I wish I had done that, but I said, I got to at least try. And finally, my mother said to me, she says, Melanie, she says, I always wanted to be an anchor woman and I was so scared and I never tried. And she said, you know what? I respect the fact that you're okay with living with failure than dying with having never tried.
Oh wow, that's a whole word right there.
Living with failure, because I'm gonna tell you, in these 24 years, I have failed at many things.
Mhm.
I do know that I praise God for I have to cry sometimes when you fail. You fall on your face, you make bad decisions, but the ability to get back up after you fall and say, I'm not gonna let this break me for the rest of my life. That to me is the key to any level of success, to be able to fall with grace and get back up and say, okay, let me try this a different way.
See, and again, that's what Beyond the Hype is all about. You couldn't have produced this event of faith that's tied
Mhm,
to maybe the biggest annual event in the world
mhm.
without standing on a foundation of faith. Your
Oh, yeah.
authenticity as a woman of faith
Mhm,
informs the authenticity and the possibility and the growth of this event over the 25 years. And I want to
mhm.
make that connection because I tell entrepreneurs, even if you don't have to be a faith-based entrepreneur, but what you believe about what's possible and what the foundation that you're standing on is really going to inform what ultimately becomes possible for you or not possible for you
Mhm.
when you're trying to say I'm the embodiment of this mission for my business,
Mhm.
and you're a living representation of that,
Oh,
because
thank
not
you.
just because this is about an inspirational entertainment property, but
Mhm.
it's true to who you are and what you believe. And this whole idea of, actually, I just posted something on Instagram this past week about staying in your lane, and I said often when people are telling you to stay in your lane, they're telling you to kind of, like, I never would have left my hometown to go to college if I had
Mhm.
stayed in my lane. I never would have become a journalist if I had stayed in my lane. You would have done what you've done if you had said, you know what, like you said, it would have been easier to say,
Mhm.
I'm going to become a teacher. I
Mhm.
got family history in it. So it's not that the advice was bad,
Mhm.
but you had to go out of your so-called lane to do what God called you to do.
You have to
Um,
answer your call, and everybody has a
yes.
different call. And people always say, over these 24 years, what was your favorite moment? Was it when you had Patti LaBelle? Was it when you had Gladys, Snoop Dogg, or whatever? And I tell people my favorite moment of all these years literally has nothing to do with talent. It has to do within Atlanta. Atlanta, our second year doing this in 2000, both of my parents came, because they were gonna rock out with me and support me no matter what. But they were at that moment able to visualize what I had been saying to them. And my mother sat there with the look on her face, the pride that she had on her face, and my father, and they were like, "We get it now." That's my fondest memory over these 22 years. The way they looked at me and said, "Baby girl, you said you were gonna do it, and you doing it." And I will never forget that day.
I know that had to be amazing, amazing, amazing. So let me talk to you about this as a business, and that's the other thing.
Mhm.
You're a consummate business person, and you have to be if you're going to do business on a scale, with a scale as grand as the NFL and the Super Bowl in particular. Talk a
Mhm.
bit about what this journey has been for you as an entrepreneur, and what you were able to accomplish in the beginning, and what it's grown to today.
It's interesting you meant that you said that because I'll tell people when I talk about the failures over the years as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I'm so keen on now, I understand that I think back over the years when people wouldn't take my calls or would not try to even hear my case or anything, if I would keep calling them or what have you, I realized, and it took me some years, I would take it personal, never get mad, but I would feel hurt by it. And I realized people are juggling so many hats, wearing, doing multiple jobs in one job. Is not personal. They may have something else they feel more passionate about, or they just may not have time. And what I finally realized is that when you take rejection over these years, I've had so much rejection, but I always remember hear my mother's voice say, take it with grace. And some of the same people that never took my calls or were not as kind, God always saw fit to, in as many cases, where I would run back into that person, or they would say, "Hey, you still doing it, and let's talk again. I'm at a different place now. I'm not at that particular corporation anymore." And so one of the things I wanted to say is I think if I had to look over these 24 years, I think the most important key is grace, accepting rejection with grace. And also when you have your wins, not being arrogant about your wins so that you are positioned to get more wins. And like I said, I'm only saying this because I know a lot of your listeners and viewers are self-employed, and I only, I'm still learning every day. But these are the things, some of the things that I wish somebody had told me. Don't take it personal because it's really not.
Right, you're right. And I tell people it's not about you when you lose, and it's not about you when you win. Most of the
Exactly.
time, it's not really about you. People aren't really thinking that much about you. They're not
Hmm.
trying to stop you. And like you said, and if you take your wins too seriously, I tell people all the time, success is a test that's easy to fail.
Hmm.
It's a test that's easy to fail. So how you win and how you lose matters in the long run. And
Exactly.
you said the word, and that I said you were one of the sweetest people I know. the better word is that you're gracious. You
Thank
are,
you
and you've
so
always been
much.
a gracious person. And that word grace does mean something in business. It's not just a nice. It's not being nice. It's being
Mhm.
gracious and
Thank
graceful.
you.
So, so
I'm gonna
listen. I
tell you
want to
one of
make
the
sure.
things I wanted to tell you. I want your
Yeah.
viewers. My favorite poem is by Frank L. Stanton. I'm not going to quote. I want your viewers to go look at that
Mhm.
poem. It's an old poem, but it was my mother's favorite poem, and I read that poem, if not every day, at least once a week. And it's called "Keep a Going." And it basically says in that, whether the crop is up or crop is down, just keep it going. So I would love to, I hope that some of your viewers will read it and it will mean to them what it has meant for me over these 25 years.
Okay, that's your homework assignment, guys. Often our guests give you one. She gave you an easy one. Look up that poem so you
Frank
can
L.
understand
Stan,
it.
keep it going.
Keep it going. Keep it going. Listen, I want to make sure before we run out of time that our audience knows where to find this content, what's happening during the Super Bowl,
Okay.
when is the Super Bowl Soulful Celebration hosted by Nate Burleson,
Okay.
when and where is that going to be airing? And I think there's a Instagram account, Super Bowl Soulful, that's
Yeah,
established.
so they should go to our website, which is superbowlsoulful.com. They can see what days the best of Super Bowl comes on in all the different markets. They can just click on their city in the map, and they'll be able to see. And then I can tell you, as we're approaching our 25th year, it's going to be in Vegas. We have a huge new broadcast partner that we're going to be airing the night before Super Bowl. It'll be a part of the Super Bowl airing of the different events. Won't be a whole lot, so it's really exclusive and it's special. And Tasha will kill me if I tell you everything, but check back in on Black Enterprise. We'll make sure that we get all the details over to Black Enterprise first. It's going to be an amazing lineup, an amazing host, an amazing broadcast partner. It's going to be phenomenal. And I hope, the viewers, you all meet us in Vegas because we're going all the way up.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
We're going up.
Up as you have been, and I tell people up is not a straight line. Up is
Mhm.
this, but it's
Oh,
still
you
up.
preaching now, sir.
Well, I know, I know, trust me, I do. So, Melanie, I knew this time was going to go by really, really quickly, but it was worth every minute. The audience is definitely going to be paying attention and looking for the details that you release them about who's going to be there and what's going to happen. And I know I'm going to be excited to tune in. And like I said, I might be joining you in Vegas to go see what
Please
happens.
come. You know Tasha's will take good care of you.
That's true. That's just you and Tasha. I know y'all between the two of y'all, I'll be really well taken care of.
Okay.
Listen, Melanie, it's so good to see you.
Thank
You know,
you.
see you smiling, to see you winning. I know the journey, and I know it wasn't easy.
No.
But I'm just so so proud of you, and I know all of us at Black Enterprise, especially me and Derek, are definitely we are deeply appreciative because we knew where you started before you started, and it
Walking
just
around the conference, telling people my dream and just walking.
walking, talking, but doing it
Right. Thank
is a
you.
woman of faith, a great example of what it means to do it anyway.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for joining me as my guest on Beyond the Hype.
Thank you so much.
Well, guys, you know how we do. Always a great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm Alfred Edley Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor of Black Enterprise. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Take care.